Hi, I am Sophia. Welcome to True Payback, where story hits different. Hit subscribe. Let's dive in.
There is a particular kind of silence that fills a room when your parents are deciding in real time whether you are worth including. It is not a loud silence. It is not dramatic. It is the silence of being looked at and found insufficient, and the decision being made so quickly, so reflexively, that you understand it was never really a decision at all. It was just a habit. You were the habit. I grew up as the habit. My name is Priya Nair-Chandrasekaran. I am 41 years old. I am a senior partner at Meridian Policy Group, a government affairs and legislative strategy firm with offices in the Capitol and Washington. For the past 6 years, I have served as chief legal counsel to Senator William Caldwell, a relationship that began when he was a first-term senator navigating a regulatory dispute that 3 larger firms had assessed as unwinnable, and that I assessed as a matter of reading the statute more carefully than anyone else had bothered to. We won the case in 11 weeks. He called me the following Monday and said, "I want you on everything." I told him our retainer structure. He didn't flinch. That was 6 years ago. Senator Caldwell is now in his 3rd term, chairs the Commerce Committee, and is, depending on which political forecaster you read, either a likely presidential candidate in the next cycle or the most influential non-candidate in the party. Either way, he does not make significant moves without calling me first. My parents do not know this. My parents know that I am a lawyer. They know that I have an office downtown because my father drove past it once and mentioned the parking looked difficult. They know that I work in politics somehow, which is how my mother described my career at my cousin's wedding 2 years ago to a table of relatives who nodded politely and moved on to more interesting subjects. What they do not know is the shape of the life I have actually built. I stopped offering that shape to people who used it for target practice. My father, Suresh Nair, came to this country at 26 with an engineering degree for $100, and the specific ferocity of a man who has decided that failure is not a language he is willing to learn. He built a civil engineering consulting firm from a single room above a hardware store and grew it, over 30 years, into a company with 40 employees and a solid regional reputation. This is genuinely impressive. I have said so repeatedly and sincerely. The problem is not that my father built something. The problem is that he built it and decided it entitled him to judge the construction quality of everyone else's work, particularly mine. My mother, Kamala, is a more complicated architecture. She is warm, generous, funny in 3 languages, and capable of devastating precision when she feels her family's social standing is being threatened. She loves me the way some people love expensive things they are afraid to use. Carefully from a distance, always slightly worried I will embarrass her. I was not the child they expected. I was the one who argued, who read instead of socializing, who got into Georgetown Law and came home for the summer after first year and spent 3 months in a low-grade argument with my father about whether law was a respectable career for a woman or merely a placeholder until the correct life began. The correct life, in his framework, involved a husband first and ambition second, ordered in that priority without exception. I have a husband. His name is Daniel Chandrasekaran, and he is a cardiologist, and my parents adore him with a completeness they have never extended to me. When Daniel speaks at family dinners, my father leans forward. When I speak, my father checks his phone. Daniel finds this enraging in a way I have long since moved past. "You are literally more accomplished than anyone at that table," he said once, driving home from a particularly airless family dinner. "And they treat you like you're still 17 and failing calculus." "I never failed calculus," I said. "I know. That's my point." Daniel knows everything about my career. He has been at the firm dinners, the legislative receptions, the quiet celebratory drink when we won the Caldwell case in year 1. He has watched me build this for 12 years and has cheered at every floor. He is also the reason I haven't walked away from my family entirely, not because he counsels patients but because he loves them in the guileless way of someone who came from a family that was simply kind to each other, and he cannot quite believe the other kind exists, which keeps me connected to mine through the borrowed warmth of his incomprehension. The business was called Nair Build Consulting's new division, an infrastructure advisory practice my father had been developing for 2 years to serve state and federal contract opportunities. 40 years of civil engineering work, a new regulatory landscape, and a genuine opening in the market. On paper it was sound. My father had the expertise. He had the relationships. What he needed, he had determined after months of research, was political visibility, Specifically, an endorsement from a senator with infrastructure credibility and national profile. He had landed on Senator William Caldwell. I learned about this at Sunday dinner in October, when my father spread his materials across the dining room table between the rice and the dal and began presenting his strategy with the focused energy of a man who had been rehearsing. He had prepared a packet, talking points, a letter of introduction from a local Chamber of Commerce contact who had a distant connection to someone on the senator's constituent services staff. This endorsement, my father said, tapping the packet, would open every door we need. Caldwell's name on this is worth 5 years of cold outreach. He was not wrong. I know exactly what the senator's endorsement is worth because I have spent 6 years understanding the value of every tool in William Caldwell's political toolkit, and infrastructure endorsements are currently among the most leveraged. I said nothing. I was eating. I was also, quietly, doing the arithmetic of the situation, measuring the distance between what I knew and what my father knew and what the consequences might be of closing that distance versus leaving it open. My mother looked at me across the table. "You work in politics," she said in the tone of someone acknowledging a minor hobby. "Do you know anything about Senator Caldwell's office?" "A little," I said. "We have a contact," my father said, not looking at me. "A constituent services staffer. It's handled." "I'm sure it is," I said. "This is very high-level work," my mother added, still looking at me. "Delicate. Political relationships are not something you can just navigate without experience." I looked at my dal. "Of course," I said. "It's not something for people who couldn't even hold a real job," she said. Her voice was not cruel. It was matter-of-fact, the way you state a category. "The sky is blue. Water is wet. Priya is not equipped for this. These are simply facts." I picked up my coffee cup. I nodded quietly. I said nothing. Daniel, across the table, had gone very still in the way he goes still when he is performing extreme self-control. I did not look at him. My father outlined the rest of his plan. He had an appointment, through his chamber contacts connection, with a constituent services coordinator at the senator's office for the following Tuesday. He would present the packet. He would make the case. He was confident. "Good luck," I said when he finished. He nodded, already moving on to something else. I should explain what my relationship with Senator Caldwell actually looks like because Chief Legal Counsel is a title that can mean many things, and in this case it means something specific. I am not on his official government staff. Government Legal Counsel is a separate position, filled by someone from the Senate Legal Office. What I am is his outside counsel on everything that exists in the complex territory between his legislative work and his external obligations: campaign finance compliance, constituent contract reviews that carry legal exposure, the regulatory work that flows from his committee assignments when it touches private sector clients who retain our firm, and the ongoing strategic legal advice that a senator in his position requires from someone he trusts completely and who operates outside the government's official structure. I talk to William Caldwell an average of 4 times a week. I have his cell number. He has mine. I have met his wife, his children, his chief of staff, and his 2 dogs, one of whom is named after a 19th-century jurist in a joke that only landed for about 3 people. I was at his mother's funeral. He was at my father-in-law's 70th birthday party because Daniel's father had been instrumental in a hospital policy bill and the senator wanted to thank him personally, and I mentioned we were celebrating that weekend. William Caldwell has, on 3 separate occasions, described me to other people as the sharpest legal mind I work with, which I mention not for vanity but for precision. This is the nature of the relationship my parents believe I am unqualified to navigate. On Monday afternoon, the day before my parents' appointment, my phone rang. It was the senator's scheduler. "Priya, I'm updating the senator's Tuesday calendar. He wants you on the 11 o'clock call with the Commerce staff, and then there's a constituent meeting at 2 that he'd like you to have background on. Infrastructure Advisory Company, Regional, looking for endorsement consideration. Name is Nair Consulting." I sat with that for a moment. "I'll take a look at the file," I said. "Great. He may want you available by phone during the meeting." "I'll be available," I said. I hung up and looked out my office window for a while. The city was doing its Tuesday thing, gray October light, the slow southward movement of bureaucratic urgency. I thought about calling my parents. I thought about what I would say and how they would receive it and whether the warning would be processed as information or as interference from the daughter who doesn't understand high-level work. I did not call. I told Daniel that evening. He was quiet for a moment and then he said, "What are you going to do?" "Nothing," I said. "I'm going to be available by phone during their meeting if the senator needs me. That's my job." "Priya. That's my job, Daniel." He understood. He also understood what I wasn't saying, that I had tried many times to close the distance and had been turned away each time with such efficient certainty that eventually the attempting became more painful than the distance, and I had made peace with the gap, and what was happening Tuesday was not something I was engineering. It was just what my life looked like from the outside, finally becoming visible from the inside. He said. He refilled my wine glass. "Tell me what Kavya did at school." "Our daughter, Kavya, is 8 years old and is currently conducting what she describes as a scientific investigation into whether our cat theorem prefers classical music or silence. She has a notebook. She has a methodology. She is the most rigorous 8-year-old I have ever encountered, which Daniel says she gets from me and I say she gets from him, and we are both probably right." I spent 20 minutes telling Daniel about the latest entry in Kavya's research log and felt the weight of the week redistribute itself into something manageable. This is the life. This is what exists outside the drama of Tuesday. A child with a notebook and a cat with a name and a husband who refills your wine glass and listens to the parts of your day that actually matter. I have worked very hard to build this life. I will not let Tuesday distort my understanding of what I have. Tuesday came the way Tuesdays do. Unremarkably, without ceremony, with the usual stack of emails requiring the usual calibrated responses. At 1:45 I was on a call with our Washington office about a Commerce Committee markup when my assistant knocked and held up a note. "Senator's office. They're in the 2 o'clock going well, might want you on standby." I wrapped the Washington call, moved to my desk and opened the background file on Nair-Build. Read through it for the second time. Clean company. Solid engineering reputation. Real expertise. The endorsement ask was legitimate. My father was not wrong about the strategic value, and he was not wrong that his firm deserved consideration. What he had miscalculated was the geography. At 2:17 my phone rang. Senator Caldwell's direct line. "Priya, I have a situation." I saw the file. Nair Consulting. Pause. "You know them. They're my parents." Silence. The specific silence of a man who is very good at processing information, recalibrating in real time. "Your parents are in my conference room right now." "I know. They don't know you work for me." "No." Another pause. I could hear very faintly in the background the ambient sound of his office, the particular acoustic texture of the wood-paneled conference room on the 3rd floor where constituent meetings happen, where my parents were sitting right now, rehearsed and polished, with their packet. "What would you like me to do?" he asked. This was William Caldwell at his best. Not assuming, not deciding for me, asking the actual question. It is one of the reasons I have trusted him for 6 years. "Nothing different," I said. "Evaluate the endorsement on its merits." "I'm not asking for anything either way." "I know you're not. I'm asking what you want." I thought about my mother's voice at Sunday dinner. Not something for people who couldn't even hold a real job. I thought about how long I had been holding this particular job and how well, and how completely invisible that holding had been to the people who were sitting 20 blocks away in a senator's conference room believing they were navigating a world I didn't understand. "I think," I said, "that it might be useful for them to know the context. Before they leave." He was quiet for a moment. "How do you want them to know?" "Naturally," I said. "However it happens naturally." "All right." Pause. "Priya. For what it's worth, your firm's work for my office has been exceptional. I'm going to tell them that." "That's your call," I said. "It's also the truth." He hung up. I looked at my phone for a moment. Then I put it face down on my desk and finished my coffee and waited. At 2:41 my phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize, which resolved when I opened it into a message from my father's cell. "Call me when you can." This was unusual. My father does not send texts that ask to be called. My father sends texts that contain information and require no response. The asking was new. I called. He answered on the first ring, which was also new. "Priya." His voice had a quality I had not heard in it before. Not chastened exactly, because my father does not do chastened, but something adjacent. Something that had been compressed and was now slightly less compressed. Dad. How did the meeting go? Pause. We met with Senator Caldwell. I know. How did it go? He was very thorough. He had read the full file. Another pause. He spoke highly of his legal team. His outside counsel. A longer pause. He mentioned them by name. By firm name. Meridian Policy Group, I said. Silence. He said, my father continued slowly, that his chief legal counsel had been with him for 6 years. That she was, he used the word indispensable. He said he wouldn't make a significant legal or strategic move without her input. Pause. Then his secretary came in to confirm his 4 o'clock. She said the chief counsel had been on standby during our meeting in case the senator needed to consult. I said nothing. Priya. My father's voice had dropped. Is that you? Is that your firm? Yes, I said. The silence that followed was long enough that I counted it. Not deliberately, but because I have a habit of measuring silences the way you measure distances, to know what you're crossing. You didn't say anything, he said. On Sunday. You didn't ask. You could have told us. I tried to tell you things for a long time, I said. You were usually busy. Another silence. Different texture from the first. Less shock, more something that was beginning to understand itself as a different kind of feeling. He's going to consider the endorsement, my father said. Caldwell. He said he'd have his team review the full application and respond within 30 days. That's his standard timeline, I said. It means he's taking it seriously. His team, my father said. His team will be thorough and fair, I said. Whatever they decide will be based on the merits of the application. I want you to know that clearly. I haven't said a word to him about your company except to confirm the family connection when he called me. You could have helped us, he said. Not accusing, genuinely uncertain, parsing something. I don't know that I could have, I said. Not without compromising both my professional relationship and your application's integrity. If the endorsement comes through, you need it to be real. You need it to be because your company earned it. Not because of me. He was quiet for a moment. He stopped. Started again. That's a careful way to think about it. It's the only way to think about it, I said. It's my job. The word landed between us. My job. The job that wasn't real. The job for someone who couldn't hold one. I heard him exhale. Your mother wants to talk to you, he said. My mother came on the line with the energy of someone who has been waiting to speak for several minutes and has spent those minutes composing and discarding openings. Priya, she said. Mom. The senator's office, she said. You've been working for him for 6 years? Chief legal counsel. Outside counsel technically. I'm not government staff. 6 years. He seemed to be doing the arithmetic. That's before his second term. Since the first term. I took the retainer in my 3rd year of practice. And you never, she stopped. We didn't know. No. Why? And in her voice was something I hadn't expected. Not embarrassment, though that was there too, but something raw. Something that wanted to understand genuinely how the gap had grown this wide. I thought carefully about what I wanted to say. Not what would hurt most. Not what would vindicate most. What was actually true. Every time I tried to share something about my work, I said, the conversation moved on. To Derek's projects or to whoever was getting married or to what I should be doing differently. After a while I stopped offering. I didn't stop doing, I just stopped offering. Silence. Sunday dinner, she said. What I said about Mom. I stopped her gently. I'm not interested in the apology right now. I'm interested in whether this can be different. That's the only question that matters. Pause. Can it be? I don't know, I said. I think that depends more on you and Dad than on me. I'm not angry. I've been living a life that you haven't seen. And I've made my peace with that. What I don't know is whether you want to see it now. A long silence. Outside my window, the October afternoon had gone the color of old copper. That particular late day light that makes the Capitol look like a painting of itself. Daniel said, my mother started and stopped. What did Daniel say? He said, last Christmas when you'd gone to get Kavya from the car, he said, you know, she doesn't talk about her work because the last 20 times she tried, Nobody asked a follow-up question. And your father laughed and said Daniel was being dramatic. Pause. He wasn't being dramatic. No, I said. He wasn't. Kavya, my mother said, shifting. How is she? How is her? She was doing some kind of science project. And there was the small motion. Not a healed wound. Not a resolved history. A question asked about my daughter, a genuine one. A question that had not been preceded by a performance of interest but was simply, quietly, interest. She's investigating whether our cat prefers classical music or silence, I said. She has a hypothesis and a control group. My mother laughed. A real one, surprised out of her. She's exactly like you were, she said. I know, I said. Dad used to say I asked too many questions. Pause. He was wrong about that, my mother said. Small, quiet, insufficient in the scale of things. But real. 3 weeks later, Senator Caldwell's office sent Nair consulting a formal endorsement letter for their federal infrastructure advisory practice. The letter cited the company's 30-year engineering record, its regional contract history, and its alignment with the senator's infrastructure investment priorities. It was, by any measure, a strong endorsement, the kind that opens the doors my father had been trying to open. I know this because the senator's chief of staff sent me the draft for review before it went out. Standard procedure for any external communication that could carry legal or reputational implications. I reviewed it. It was accurate, fair, and earned. I sent it back with no changes. My father called when the letter arrived. It came, he said. I heard, I said. You're firm, he paused. Did you? I reviewed the draft for accuracy. Standard procedure. I didn't change anything. Silence. Thank you, he said. It was slightly awkward, the way thanks are when someone is not accustomed to offering them and hasn't yet found the register that fits. You're welcome, I said. The endorsement is real, Dad. Your company earned it. I know. Pause. Priya. I'd like to, your mother and I would like to come for dinner. Not a family event. Just dinner. With you and Daniel and Kavya, if that's all right. I looked at the wall of my office, the shelf where I keep the things that mean something. A framed photo of Daniel and me at our firm's first anniversary, Kavya's first drawing of what she labeled Mom working, a figure at a desk surrounded by what appear to be small rectangles, which she later explained were important papers. A small award from a bar association that I keep not for vanity but because I remember the year I won it and what I was carrying that year and how much it meant to have something external confirm what I was building. Come for dinner, I said. Saturday. Saturday, he said. Good. He did not say he was sorry. My father is not, constitutionally, a man who apologizes. The word requires a specific kind of softness that he spent his whole life believing was incompatible with survival, and you cannot fully blame someone for the armor they built before they knew they were safe. He said thank you, and Saturday, and your mother will bring something. It was not enough in the accounting of years. It was something in the accounting of now. Saturday came with cold rain and the smell of whatever my mother was bringing, which turned out to be her lamb curry, the one she makes for people she loves and occasions she considers important. She stood in my kitchen doorway and looked at my kitchen. Really looked at it, the photographs on the refrigerator, Kavya's research notebook on the counter, Theorem the cat observing everything from the top of the bookshelf with the detached authority of a federal judge. And her face did something complex and quiet that I chose not to name. Kavya showed my father her research methodology before dinner was on the table. She had 3 weeks of data. She had a chart. My father, who spent 40 years reading engineering specifications, leaned over her notebook with the focused attention he brings to technical documents and asked 3 specific questions about her control variables. Kavya answered all 3 correctly and then said, "Do you want to hear my hypothesis?" "Yes," my father said. "Theorem prefers silence," she said. "But only in the morning. In the afternoon the data is inconclusive." My father nodded seriously. "Inconclusive data is still useful data," he said. "It tells you what question to ask next." Kavya looked at him with the expression of someone encountering unexpected competence. "That's what Mom says," she said. My father looked up at me across the kitchen. I was standing at the counter with a glass of wine, watching. I did not smile exactly. Something in my face acknowledged something in his. It was not forgiveness. Forgiveness is a much longer road than one Saturday, and I have learned to mistrust speed in the healing of old damage. It was acknowledgement. A reckoning with the fact that the person across the kitchen had built something he had spent years declining to see, and could now see it and was choosing to stay in the room with it. Daniel put dinner on the table. My mother sat down and ladled curry with the generosity she reserves for people she is sorry about without knowing how to say so. The rain came harder against the windows. Theorem descended from the bookshelf and walked across the research notebook with the indifference of someone who does not recognize property rights. And Kavya shrieked with scientific outrage and my father laughed. We ate dinner. We talked about Nair-Build's new contracts, about Kavya's school play, about a water rights case Daniel had read about in the news and wanted my perspective on, about my mother's cousin's daughter's engagement. The ordinary architecture of a family meal. Not transformed. Not healed. Just present, in the specific difficult way of things that were broken and have not been fully repaired but have stopped for one evening getting worse. There is a version of this story that ends with my father understanding everything, saying the right words, and the years of distance closing like a wound that has been properly treated. That is not this story. What I have instead is a father who asked good questions about my daughter's research methodology and a mother who brought lamb curry and a senator's endorsement letter sitting in my parents' filing cabinet with my firm's fingerprints on the review draft and a husband who, after my parents left that evening, said nothing, just handed me a cup of tea and sat beside me on the couch in the particular silence of someone who understands that some things don't need to be talked about to be felt. I am 41 years old. I have been chief legal counsel to a United States senator for 6 years. I have a firm I built from a sublet above a print shop, a daughter who is conducting peer-reviewed research on feline musical preferences, and a marriage that is the best decision I have ever made. I also have parents who are learning, slowly and imperfectly, that their daughter has been doing extraordinary work in a world they told her she wasn't qualified to navigate. That learning is not my achievement. I did not perform for them. I did not orchestrate the moment in the senator's waiting room or arrange for my voice to come through that speaker. I was simply present in my own life and they walked into it and it was larger than they expected and now they are deciding, slowly, privately, on their own time, what to do with that information. I am not waiting on their decision. I have a full life to return to. But I left the door open. That is all it was. Just the door left open. Some people will walk through it when they're ready. Some people take longer than you hoped. You keep living anyway.